Under the dim moonlight of a cold winter night, the howling wind swept through the narrow streets of Halin City, echoing eerie sounds. In the darkness, a small figure, gaunt and worn, slipped through hidden corners, eyes keenly watching every step like a predator stalking its prey. That person was Roderick, a medieval assassin, but not the glamorous image from stories, rather the embodiment of the harshest reality of the hired killer's trade. Roderick was not born into silk or nobility. His parents died early, and he grew up in filthy alleys among beggars and criminals. As youth blossomed, he became a mercenary for a minor count, but was dismissed for being too weak and clumsy. Hungry and homeless, Roderick had only one path to survive, becoming a hired assassin. No one formally taught him any skills. All were scars, narrow escapes from death, and countless bitter failures. No magical sword, no enchanted bow. Roderick had only an old dagger, its blade worn and rough, its sharp tip having cut countless skins, and a vial of poison whose pungent smell made even him shudder. The first mission Roderick received was to kill a powerful nobleman, the Count Alaric, who was guarded like a living fortress. The Count had hundreds of guards, sentinels watching day and night, and layers of iron doors. But it was a job. Dangerous and nearly impossible, he had to accept it. Roderick stalked the Count for weeks. Every approach was a battle against the guards' terrifying vigilance. He learned to disguise himself in tattered clothes, camouflaging as a nameless beggar, avoiding all probing eyes. Night after night, he lay on rooftops, listening to footsteps, servants' whispers. Every moment he could be discovered, captured, or worse, executed without mercy. Fighting his inner fear day and night, Roderick had no friends, no family, only loneliness wrapped around him like a black cloak soaked in the scent of mourning. In this trade, no one could be trusted, even clients. The ones who hired him to kill could betray him at any moment. Many, after receiving the goods, turned to hunt the assassin, wanting to silence him to erase all traces. Finally, with rare calmness and luck, Roderick sneaked into the Count's bedroom while the castle slept. He strangled with trembling hands from lack of experience, but the enemy fell before uttering a sound. Under the dim flicker of a dying candle, the seemingly impossible mission was accomplished. But that victory brought no joy. Roderick knew the client who had hired him was lurking outside the door, waiting to finish him off, because having completed the task, he was now a burden, a dangerous witness. He fled into the night, running like a ghost through the city's heart. The next day, Roderick returned to his small basement under the viaduct, palms still sweaty, mind full of foggy thoughts. The medieval assassin's life was not the legend he had heard, but a miserable, lonely existence filled with danger and betrayal. No pension, no fame, only survival in a shadow world no one wanted to mention. In Roderick's heart, the only desire was that one day he might escape this dark, vicious cycle. But he knew well, with his past and present life, it was only a distant dream, for in the world of assassins, no weakling is allowed to live long. And as darkness once again covered the city, Roderick prepared for the next mission, a new battle in the deadly game from which he could not escape. Assassination is not a romantic job. There is no mysterious knight or high art, only fighting in the dark, swiftly and silently. Failure often leads to painful, public, and humiliating death. Rewards are rarely worth the risk, and there is never any guarantee of safety or future. An assassin must live like a ghost without friends, family, or a normal life. The flickering flame from the oil lamp in Eamon's trembling hand wavered lightly as he moved through the dark corridor of the ancient castle. The darkness, thick like black velvet, enveloped every corner, hiding all sounds except the silent footsteps of his own. Eamon was neither a famous warrior nor a hero in folk tales. He was a medieval assassin, a being living in shadows, a soul rejected by society. Eamon's work was not the romantic scenes found in stories about assassins with magic or extraordinary skills. There was no mysterious knight or high art here, only fighting in the dark, quickly and quietly. Every time he held the cold dagger, his heart seemed ready to leap from his chest. A small mistake meant a painful and public death, an uncleanable disgrace in the eyes of the powerful and enemies alike. Today, Eamon received the task to assassinate a notoriously brutal nobleman. The mission was far from easy. The man was heavily guarded, with sentries posted everywhere, and deadly traps scattered like mouse traps in the darkness. The reward might be a few gold coins, but it was never worth the risk. No one guaranteed safety or future for people like Eamon. He had no friends, no family, and could not have a normal life. Assassins like him had to live like ghosts existing in suspicion, constantly hunted. Every night was a battle with death. Every step was a leap between life and death. Eamon recalled his most recent failure when he was nearly caught on a cold, rainy night. The enemy had discovered him, and death was almost upon him, making him feel the bone-chilling cold of fear. He escaped, but the price was a deep wound, so painful he almost collapsed in the street. The humiliation of being hunted diminished some of his usual confidence. Now, each step closer to the target, he sensed the heavy breath of danger surrounding him. The slightest noise could mean discovery. He had to act fast, precisely, and leave no trace. The cold dagger was drawn from beneath his cloak, its silver glint flashing in the dark, making his heart beat faster. In that moment, he understood clearly that assassination was never a romantic job. It was hours of life and death struggle, dull pain in the soul, and utter loneliness without consolation. Each successful mission only opened the door to the next, and every survival was a rare fortune in the black sea of cruelty. Eamon knew that if he failed, death would come swiftly and brutally with no place for mercy or compassion. But if he succeeded, the reward could never buy freedom or a normal life. He was just a puppet in the hands of the powerful, forced to exchange everything to survive. And so the ghost in the night continued his journey, silent, lightless, with only the utmost tension of living on the edge of death. Beliefs and superstitions of that society. People in the Middle Ages viewed assassins as monstrous beings, capable of magic or in league with demons. Fear made them hunted not only for their murders, but also because they were suspected witches or cursed beings. They had to keep moving constantly to avoid fanatic mobs armed with torches and spears. After darkness swallowed Eamon's figure, he knew life was not only a game with death, but also a battle with other ghosts, the ghosts of faith and terrible superstition from the society in which he lived. In the eyes of medieval people, beings like him were not just assassins. They were monsters suspected of using dark magic or even conspiring with demons. The last time Eamon stopped at a small village on the edge of the forest, he clearly felt the chill not only from the winter air, but from the horrified and hostile gazes of the locals. They looked at him as a monster, a cursed being bringing disaster and death. Even a sigh from him was enough to scare the children into scattering. Rumors spread like fire on dry grass. A shadowy figure was passing through, bringing unexplained death. People said he could transform, speak with demons, and cast curses. Those ghost stories not only made Eamon a target of suspicion, but also turned him into easy prey. One night, while sheltering in an old barn, screams echoed throughout the village. A fanatical mob, torches blazing and spears sharp, came rushing blindly and angrily. They believed only by exterminating the witch could they save the village from disaster. Their eyes were like burning flames, making the space around Eamon suffocatingly tight. He had to move quickly like a true ghost, escaping that deadly trap. The streets were chaotic, footsteps chasing like the tolling of death bells ringing in his ears. Each time he looked back, he saw only frenzied faces, devoid of humanity, filled only with madness and fear. There was nowhere safe. Old houses, deserted alleys, even dark corners of the deep forest could be traps set by the fanatic crowd. Eamon had to constantly change hiding places, unable to stop for long to avoid being discovered. Each change was a life or death battle with endless fear and physical as well as mental pain. The blind faith of the people formed an invisible net, dense and surrounding him. They hunted Eamon not only because of the cruel missions he had once carried out, but also because they believed he was the embodiment of darkness, of demons, a living curse in the mortal world. And in that harshness, Eamon knew that the life of an assassin was not just a battle against tangible enemies, but also a struggle with invisible ghosts, the dark beliefs of a society sinking deep into superstition and fear. About weapons and assassination techniques, poisons were unreliable, hard to control the dosage, easily detected. The main tools were daggers, strangling cords, and some other simple weapons. No formal training, no groups or organizations to assist. Assassins worked alone. Most assassinations required direct contact with the target, very dangerous and prone to failure. Darkness covered the narrow alley as Eamon followed the heavy footsteps of his target, a high-ranking official strolling through the darkest area of the city. This time, he could not use extravagant tricks or far-fetched schemes like in fairy tales. His weapon was only a dull dagger sharpened from rusty steel, a small rope, and a somewhat fragile courage. Poisons, rumored to be the ultimate weapon of assassins, were in reality the least reliable. He had tried using them but found it difficult to control the dosage, and many times was discovered due to the unpleasant smell or clear symptoms on the victim before death. Every attempt was a gamble. Too little and the victim would not die. Too much and the victim would scream, alerting the entire city. Poison was not a safe choice, especially when the opponent was always vigilant and closely guarded by servants. No school trained Eamon in assassination techniques. He belonged to no group or organization to learn from or receive help. All was owned through personal experience from failures and lucky escapes. Every mission was a distinct challenge, and he had to find the way himself, facing danger alone. To approach the target, Eamon had to sneak silently past wooden walls, avoid guards' gazes, bypass shuttered doors, and strict watch layers. This work was not for the faint-hearted. A small mistake meant being discovered, and death would come without warning. In that moment, the dagger in his hand was cold as a part of the darkness. The coiled rope was ready to strangle if necessary, a simple but effective tool. He could not use many weapons, as anything too noisy or unfamiliar would alert others. Most assassinations Eamon participated in relied on direct proximity to the target, within only a few steps. Each time, he had to breathe slowly, listen to his own heartbeat to avoid revealing traces. A single slash of the blade was enough, but if inaccurate, it would not only cause mission failure, but also put him into the hands of death. Failures were not few. Some nights, Eamon had to flee the area with bleeding wounds, heart pounding erratically from being discovered just in time. Loneliness and coldness followed him through restless sleeps when any small noise could be the footsteps of guards. Assassination technique was not something that could be quickly learned or easily mastered. It required patience, delicacy in every movement, and, most importantly, ruthless coldness. Eamon was not a legendary warrior, but a survivor in a world where a small mistake could cost a life. Crude weapons and survival skills honed through hundreds of trials were not heroic stories, but pieces of the harsh life medieval assassins faced. A life full of mystery, danger, and no room for weakness. Medieval assassins had no future, no retirement or pension, only disappearance or early death. If surviving a mission, they were still pursued, living anonymously under many different names. Sleeplessness, living in fear, trusting no one, always on maximum alert. They were forbidden to reveal their profession, with no one to share psychological burdens or pain. The faint moonlight filtered through the canopy of the ancient forest as Eamon continued his journey, fleeing from the relentless darkness that pursued him. His life, that of a medieval assassin, held no promise of a bright future or a day of peaceful rest. No retirement plan, no pension to guarantee his old age. Only two paths remained: vanish into the shadows or die early by the enemy's blade. After each completed mission, instead of rest or a worthy reward, Eamon faced unending pursuit. Clients, those who hired him to kill, often wished to leave no witnesses. A high-ranking official who once employed Eamon secretly ordered the guards to hunt the ghost to the end, erasing all traces. Because of this, Eamon was forced to live anonymously under many different names, making himself non-existent in society's eyes. One day, he could be a limping street vendor, the next a beggar no one remembered. Each name was a mask, but fear and loneliness could not be escaped. Insomnia became a constant companion. Every night when all was quiet, Eamon's mind was haunted by images, pursuing shadows, sharp knives raised, victim screams, and the betrayal of those who had once hired him. Heightened vigilance turned into an invisible shackle, dragging him to the depths of endless panic. Trusting no one, this was the assassin's curse. He knew well that a careless word or strange gesture could cost him his life. No true friends, no family to rely on, and no organization or group to share the psychological burden. The secrecy of his profession was guarded like a precious treasure, but was also a terrible burden. Eamon was forbidden from revealing his trade to anyone, not even a single word. Silence became a sharp blade, severing all connections, turning him into a lone figure amidst the bustling crowd. Time did not soothe the pain, but only deepened it in his soul. Every time he looked in the mirror, Eamon saw a tired face marked by sadness and hardness. He wondered if one day he could escape this dark cycle, or if his life was just a series of days struggling between imminent death and eternal oblivion. Yet with every cold breath and hurried step through the dark streets, Eamon had to keep surviving. For a medieval assassin, death was not just an end, it was an inevitable part of a life without a future. Transition story. Olympias. The legendary queen of Macedonia, Olympias, mother of Alexander the Great, was a powerful and mysterious figure linked with legend, religious rites, and cold power. She used magic, rituals, and brutality to protect her son's position and secure the throne. Olympias's life proved the strength and calculation in ancient politics, relying not only on force but also on intellect, superstition, and spiritual power. She was hunted and eventually died in solitude, but left a profound mark in history as a symbol of female power, authority, and intrigue. In the silent darkness of the Macedonian palace, Olympias, the powerful and enigmatic woman, stood quietly watching the star-filled sky through the stone window. She was not only Alexander the Great's mother, but also a symbol of cold power, calculation, and the legends shrouding her life. Known not only for her royal blood, but also for the mysterious religious rites she led, rituals imbued with myth and magic, people rumored that she possessed ancient magic to protect the throne and her son's fate. Mysterious moonlit festivals, curses echoing in the night, all were inseparable parts of the power Olympias held. Unlike the weak queens of stories, Olympias was a blend of brutality and wisdom. She used sharp intellect, deep political calculations, and a hardened soul to protect her position and secure Alexander's throne. Enemies daring to challenge the throne paid dearly, sometimes with their lives in bloody conspiracies she directed from behind the scenes. The combination of political power and superstition created an unpredictable force. Olympias not only believed in physical strength or weapons, but also in spiritual power, prophecies, and mystical rituals. It is said that she once summoned ancient spirits for guidance and used sacred rites to protect the royal family from the vicious schemes of rival factions. Olympias' life was a series of dramatic upheavals, from becoming a young queen, mother of a future king, to relentless struggles to maintain power. She lived in a world where politics was not just negotiation, but a life and death battle, where a small mistake could destroy an entire family. But in the end, no matter how powerful, Olympias could not escape her own harsh fate. Hunted by merciless enemies, she died alone, broken and forgotten in the cold shadows of history. However, the mark she left could never be erased, a symbol of female power, authority, and intrigue, proving a strength beyond mere force and violence. Olympias was not only the mother of an empire, but also the embodiment of the hidden forces in ancient politics, where wisdom, superstition, and ruthlessness intertwined to create true power. She demonstrated that a throne is not only held by sword and spear, but also by the sharpness of mind and the relentless coldness of a powerful woman. Exploring the Minoan civilization and the Palace of Knossos. Knossos was the palace of the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete, with a complex labyrinth-like architecture featuring ventilation systems, flowing water, and modern toilets. This place inspired the legend of the labyrinth and the Minotaur, the bull-headed monster. The Minoan civilization stood out for its art, the worship of bulls and snakes, with many mysterious and complex rituals. Today, Knossos is one of the most mysterious and impressive archaeological sites of the ancient world. Gentle sunlight filtered through narrow cracks in the stone walls, illuminating colorful murals and mysterious images inside the Palace of Knossos, the center of the Minoan civilization on Crete. This place was not only a massive architectural work, but also like a living labyrinth, with winding corridors, curving staircases, and intricately arranged rooms that could easily cause any lost visitor to lose their way. The Palace of Knossos was built with advanced technologies ahead of its time. A sophisticated ventilation system kept air circulating in every room, a complex water system with clay pipes, and even modern toilets, unprecedented in contemporary civilizations. This marvel made Knossos not only a residence for kings, but also a symbol of the Minoans' remarkable development. But what made Knossos most famous was the legend associated with it. The story of the labyrinth and the Minotaur, a half-man, half-bull creature imprisoned deep within the palace. It is said the labyrinth was so complex that even its builders found it hard to escape. For centuries, this tale has fascinated the imagination of countless generations, adding layers of mystery to Knossos. The Minoan civilization was not only remarkable for its architecture, but also for its refined art, with vivid murals depicting hunting scenes, dancing, and rituals worshipping bulls and snakes. These animals were not only symbols, but also central to mystical beliefs. Complex ceremonies were held within the palace, involving offerings and secret rites meant to preserve prosperity and protect the community from unseen disasters. Every corner of Knossos holds untold stories, ancient secrets waiting to be discovered. Thick walls and winding corridors bear traces of a legendary civilization where science, art, and faith merge to create a world both magical and eerie. Today, Knossos remains one of the most mysterious and impressive archaeological sites of the ancient world, leaving anyone who sets foot here amazed and fascinated by the ingenuity and mystery of the Minoan civilization. Not only an architectural work, Knossos serves as a reminder of legendary stories, of secrets buried for millennia beneath the dense stones of history. Tools and siege tactics in ancient and medieval history. Siege tools such as battering rams, catapults, trebuchets are a combination of physical engineering and psychological tactics. Siege towers are mobile structures that help soldiers climb over walls to break defenses. The tactic of digging tunnels under the walls, sapping to collapse the fortifications. Defense using hot oil, boiling water, hot sand, heavy stones dropped freely from above to eliminate enemies. Psychological warfare by launching skulls, infected corpses into the city to cause panic. When artillery emerged, cannons replaced traditional siege weapons, but the principles of siege warfare still exist today. In the gloomy darkness of dawn, the sound of horse hooves echoes throughout the foot of the walls, signaling a brutal siege about to unfold. Warriors carry ancient but sophisticated destructive tools, not just soulless machines, but sharp psychological weapons in siege warfare of ancient and medieval times. Giant battering rams, magnificent catapults, and powerful trebuchets are not merely physical tools. They result from a deep understanding of physics and the psychology of war. When the ram strikes heavily against a thick wooden gate or sturdy stone wall, the resounding sound not only shakes the fortress, but also sows fear and panic among the defenders inside. Moreover, siege towers, giant mobile wooden constructions, are brought close to the walls, allowing attacking soldiers to climb up and overcome the defensive walls. The footsteps on the wood clatter in the silent space, carrying the breath of impending death. Additionally, the tactic of tunneling under the walls, also called sapping, was used by engineer teams to weaken the fortress's foundations. In the darkness of narrow tunnels, thin and patient hands work hour by hour, chiseling and placing wooden supports to create pressure that collapses the walls. With one big explosion or collapse, the entire wall crashes down, opening the way for enemies to flood in. Defense was equally brutal. From above, drops of hot oil, boiling water, and hot sand were poured like deadly rain, burning the flesh and minds of invaders. Heavy stones were dropped freely from high fortresses, crushing anyone who dared approach. The screams of pain and the smell of burning flesh mingled in the air, creating a terrifying and haunting scene. Siege warfare was also a battle of psychology and fear. Besiegers did not hesitate to use horrifying tactics, launching enemy skulls or corpses infected with disease into the city to spread epidemics and panic. The horrific sight confused hearts, destroyed fighting will, and weakened the morale of fortress defenders. When artillery was invented, cannons gradually replaced traditional siege engines. But the principles of siege warfare, the subtle combination of physical power and psychological tactics, remained unchanged. The booming explosions, steel bullets piercing walls are just a new version of the long-lasting war, where every detail, every step could decide the fate of an entire kingdom. Thus, through centuries, from simple wooden tools to modern artillery, siege warfare remains a symphony of cruelty, intelligence, and calculation, leaving a profound mark in ancient and medieval history.